Okay, welcome to the summary of the second turn of 1942. These were the two cards that were in play, although the effects didn't really come into play because, the Axis didn't use a ground attack and the Allies didn't really use a bomber, so that's a shame. Like I say, could have planned that better. Now, what did happen? The 5 Allied points were spent on, 3 for the Allies, 2 for the Soviets. That's the standard rule, obviously. And the Soviets moved one of their leaders from the Urals to the front. And with the other command, they attacked East Prussia, which they subsequently took. In case you're wondering, how did they get so many units in there? Well, one of them is an airplane, and the other one's border limit is 1, but they had 3 borders across which they could attack. So that's how I got this many blocks in there. It is possible. Many people have complained in the past about this game being too restrictive. Maybe I'm even guilty as charged as far as attacks are concerned, because there's a border limit of 1. But if you do it carefully, if you plan your attacks carefully and you carry them out carefully, it is actually very often possible to attack across multiple borders and get many units into an area in order to make an attack successful. So as you can see, the Russians actually took it. What else did the Russians do? They moved down into Norway, and they're close to capturing it. The British were toying with the idea, having the Cold War in mind that happened historically. Maybe we should move into Norway too. The rules do say that they cannot share an area, that is the Western Allies and the Soviets, but it doesn't say anything about what would happen if let's say the British or the Americans took Oslo. Would that mean that, because technically they would be in control of the area, would that mean that the Russians would withdraw? Well, I guess you can argue either way. No, the Russians, there's no way they would give up any territory once they actually took it. Or, alternatively, maybe there's been some kind of conference by this time, as indeed happened historically, and the two sides agree that Norway would remain in the Western sphere of influence. Well, anyway, the rules aren't very clear about that, and it doesn't look like the British will be able to get to Norway before the Russians do. So, as far as that's concerned, it's a completely hypothetical question, but I do think that could come into play from time to time. Now, the Americans moved several naval and air units to Britain, so they would be able to attack Germany by air on subsequent turns. In the south, the Western Allies actually didn't use all of their command because they didn't really know what else to do. The naval and air rebasing are for free, so that didn't cost them anything. And also they actually had some points left. They did move Montgomery to Malta to support an invasion there, that is, of the Italian mainland or perhaps of Sicily. They also moved naval units into the Ionian Sea, but the Italians attacked them and were actually very successful at the expense of just losing 1 aircraft point. The fighter from Sicily joined the fight. They sank a British cruiser force of, I don't know the point strength, but they were quite good. And they also reduced the aircraft that flew back to Malta to 1. It was subsequently upgraded again to 2, but the British suffered a heavy defeat in the Ionian Sea. The Germans also moved an additional unit. It came from Paris originally. That was one of the things the Germans did as well. They did not reinforce the battle in East Prussia because they thought there's no way they're going to lose it anyway. The reasons the Russians are attacking it, by the way, and not going straight for Berlin is, and this also happened historically, as you may know, they're very, very vulnerable to their flanks. Even though the Germans are in dire straits, they do still have pretty strong units, in fact stronger than the Russians have, because they still have their 1941 forces mostly, even though they have built some additional ones, but their strongest ones are still here in the forest pool. So yeah, this way, you can actually see it happening. The Germans could encircle the Russians. They have leaders here, they have tanks here, so the Russians feel it is more opportune to bide their time and take the Germans on one area at a time, rather than going for their throat right away, so to speak, because that would leave them very vulnerable. Well, that's basically what happened. Oh yeah, one more thing. The Germans also attacked the convoy, which foolishly the Allies did not reinforce, well, they couldn't reinforce it because they were the first player, but they didn't actually bother to put a naval unit in there, and the Germans attacked it with a naval bomber and with a battleship, and they actually sank 3 convoy steps, so that was pretty bad for them. Fortunately, the Americans were willing to help out, and the 4 resource points actually went to Britain, so they didn't suffer from it that much, but, well, it's something that definitely could have been avoided. So that's about it for the second turn of 1942, and I have to admit the game is continuing longer than I thought it would a couple of turns ago. As I said, I could have gone for Berlin straight away, but it's more difficult than it looks, and, well, in Italy, well, things didn't go as planned either. I could have attacked Malta, but I didn't have the forces there really yet, and, well, I want to also threaten the other Italian areas so they cannot just focus on a single one. So looking forward to the next turn, and I hope you'll join me too then. Thank you for watching.